All right, let's get more details now on this visit. We're joined by Presidency Spokesperson Vincent Magwenya. Vincent, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time.
Good evening.
Many suggestions about what could be on the agenda next week. Some are saying land, some are saying the Afrikaners who've just left, the group of 49. Others are saying AGOA. There's so much going on. What is on the agenda?
Well, Bongiwe, you've touched on some of those issues. I think most importantly, it's to understand the purpose of the meeting, which is an opportunity to reset the relationship between South Africa and the US, which we've always identified as strategic between the two countries. And it is fantastic that that exercise will commence in earnest at the highest level of leadership between the two countries. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, you have a myriad of issues ranging from bilateral trade to geopolitical issues, and of course, issues of concern, albeit misinformed, if you like, with respect to what is happening in our country. President Ramaphosa will certainly use the opportunity to affirm what he has said before to President Trump with respect to the so-called white genocide, which, as we all know, is patently false.
Does he think he'll listen, though?
Well, they've spoken on the phone, and they will speak in person, so he will have to listen. There will be an honest engagement. We would believe that in some cases or in some areas, it will be a robust engagement. There's nothing wrong with that when that engagement is open. And in that case, the president is hopeful that something positive will come out of the meeting, since it will be the first time that all of these issues will be aired and discussed in a direct sort of engagement.
And Vincent, there is the possibility, though, as we saw when the Ukrainian president went to meet with US President Donald Trump, you and I saw in the public domain as well as the rest of the world how that played out. Is South Africa prepared for the possibility here that you may not find one another with the US and you may have to come back home without any bilateral agreement or any positive?
Well, first of all,
development.
Wongi, we know the issues that are in dispute, right? And we know the issues that will be difficult, where discussions will be robust. The first issue is President Trump's perception of what is taking place in South Africa. The second issue is the matter of Israel and what's happening in Gaza. Those are issues that we believe we can discuss, and where we disagree, we can choose to respectfully agree to disagree.
So no compromising on the issue of Gaza, because some are saying that given the position that the US has taken and what it has said as a country with regards to how South Africa has viewed and even, attempted to deal with the developments in Gaza has been something that the US is not happy about. So you're saying there will not be any compromises?
Procedurally, Bongiwe, we cannot withdraw the case at the ICJ, number one. Number two, this is an issue of principle for us. It's an issue that has its roots based on our own history, but also based on our current constitutional dispensation, domestic as well as international law obligations that compel us as a state party to act in cases where we believe there's a genocide that's been committed. So we will put that position firmly so. However, there are other areas where we believe there is alignment. For example, we are completely aligned with President Trump and quite supportive of his efforts with respect to the attainment of peace between Russia and Ukraine. President Ramaphosa, as you will know, for quite a significant amount of time, has been speaking to both leaders. At some point, the president was one of the few leaders who could pick up the phone and engage both President Zelensky and President Putin. And so we think there's alignment there. President Ramaphosa will be keen to understand from President Trump how he sees the process unfold, and they will share what we believe will be useful perspectives with regard to how that conflict is resolved peacefully. We also have a massive trade opportunity between the two countries. Without sounding over-enthusiastic, we believe that there will be some excitement with respect to opportunities to enhance trade between the two countries. We obviously are interested in retaining our status in AGOA, in seeing AGOA being extended, not only for our own economic interest, but also that of the continent. However, in the event that the Trump administration has decided to do away with AGOA, we will be ready to engage over what we believe is a mutually beneficial trade relationship that we could have with the United States.
I've got two follow-up on that, two follow-up questions on that. You say that you of course want to see AGOA extended. You're not the only ones there, but some have said AGOA is as good as gone. So does the presidency believe that it can still be saved?
Well, if AGOA is good as gone, we're ready to engage over a new trade framework. And we're ready to present what we believe will be a mutually beneficial trade proposal in that regard. And so our trade basket is not entirely dependent on AGOA. Obviously, it's a scheme that we would like to continue with, that we would like to see extended and our participation continuing. However, we're not entirely dependent on AGOA, or our trade eggs are not entirely in the AGOA basket. So we're ready to discuss a new trade framework. A great deal of work has been done to finalize that and have it ready, at least at a high level, to be discussed by the two presidents.
What does it look like, Vincent? And I ask because you can see Trump is a very transactional president, and a lot of people still continue to say that, and we've seen it, playing out when he was, putting out tariffs for everybody, every country, saying that we're doing this so that you all come to the US and make some kind of a deal with the United States. What is South Africa putting on the table?
Well, without going into any details, because it will not be prudent to go into details before we've had the discussion with President Trump and members of his administration. In principle, South Africa has goods that the US needs. For example, in the area of rare earths and metals, there are no tariffs there, right? And so there are opportunities there to consolidate trade and even enhance it. The US has products or goods that we require as South Africa, where there's an opportunity to expand trade. We think that part of the discussion will be an exciting one. President Trump will see that South Africa is treating America fairly, as he often laments about the US being treated unfairly. And even in the context of a deficit that currently looks like in favor of South Africa, there's a context of that deficit, and it's not a deficit that is hugely unfairly towards the United States. And so we are confident that we will end up with a fair and balanced trade relationship, whether within the AGOA ambit or with a bilateral trade framework.
So we're not on the back foot, as some have been concerned to say that we possibly are on the back foot here and may find ourselves approaching this meeting with a begging bowl instead of confidence.
No, not really. There are issues that are in dispute. We will get over those issues. There's a trade opportunity, or rather there's an opportunity to consolidate, enhance and expand the basket of tradable goods between the two countries. So we're not necessarily in a back foot. Are there tensions? Yes, there are tensions. And we'll have to discuss those issues and get over those issues. But at the end of the day, both countries need each other. We may be a smaller economy and a smaller country in size, but we do have goods that the United States requires. Just as much the United States has goods that we require. So there is an opportunity for the enhancement of two-way trade, but we're not on a back foot.
So we're asking our viewers tonight to as we've called it in our opening, there was a point when it would be tips for Trevor when he was still the finance minister. So we're saying tips for the president, loosely put, as he goes to the US. What do they want him to possibly put on the agenda? So let me take some of the comments. Pule says, I would invite Donald Trump to come to South Africa and see for himself that there is no discrimination of white people in this country. Sawate saying, good evening, Tabela Barati Wabaka Mureneng. Mr. Trump, are you aware that the rest of the Afrikaners in South Africa are more happier than the 49 that visited you? Let's not play hide and seek, but work hand in hand for our countries. And Counterforce saying, keep your America and I will keep my South Africa. Just like Mugabe to Tony Blair, South Africa is not a colony of the US, and the president must be firm and clear that South Africa is a sovereign state with a constitution and will not allow anyone to dictate to us how the country must be run. And these are some of the viewers' thoughts. Vincent, your initial perceptions. There's something I want to ask you as a follow-up there.
I think it was Pule who said the president must invite President Trump. And so there is already a standing invitation. That invitation will be affirmed during the meeting. Not only to have President Trump over here as part of the traditional handover of the G20 presidency, which will move from South Africa to the US. The US is already part of the Troika together with Brazil as past president of the G20. That invitation remains open. It will be affirmed so that he can participate in those proceedings, but also he can see for himself that we're not running around killing white people in South Africa. And more importantly, he can enjoy some of our beautiful golf courses. And we hope when he's here, he will have some time to play golf with the president and maybe one or two other professional golfers in that four-ball and enjoy South Africa's finest golf courses and hospitality.
Let's see if that offer does come. But Vincent, Sawate mentions the issue of the 49 Afrikaners who landed in the US this week. What do we know about them? What does the presidency know?
Well, look, first of all, Bongiwe, that whole exercise does not define US-South Africa relations. It is what I will refer to respectfully a diplomatic irritant, which we need to get over. An exercise was conducted by law enforcement agencies to look into the individuals and their record, and also to ensure that none of them are escaping accountability in terms of justice. So we are satisfied in that regard that the security forces, or rather the law enforcement agencies, have done their homework. I'm not at liberty to share details about them, except to say we are happy that none of them have been found to have transgressed our laws in any shape or form or are escaping facing justice.
There is, when you listen to the conversations around, since we got to know that this working visit is going to be taking place from the 21st, some are saying that when South Africa goes there shouldn't be a tit-for-tat approach. Others are concerned, though, that, post the meeting, you may have a briefing. And if the briefing does take the form of what we saw with the Ukrainian president, some say that they will wonder as to why exactly South Africa needed to go there to be humiliated. So is that a concern at all for the president?
And Minister Nchabeni kind of put it so well. In our experience, generally, presidents don't invite each other in order to mistreat one another. But
it happened with the Ukrainian president.
Well, that was an extreme case if you think about it. If you go back and analyze what happened there, things kind of got out of control, right? President Ramaphosa is very adept to handling potentially awkward situations. We're not leaving anything to chance. We are preparing ourselves as thoroughly as possible. The president is preparing himself as well. But it will not be good of us, or rather helpful, to travel so far with a sense of negativity or fear of what might happen. The president often jokes and say we must stop fearing ghosts when we suddenly highlight a myriad of risks that we may face as a country in any exercise. In this case, he will be mindful of what may potentially happen, but it's not going to rule him. He's not going to be traveling thousands of miles to the US in fear of what might happen, number one. Number two, from what we saw after President Zelensky, Prime Minister Kani went to the White House, President Macron went to the White House. There were issues of disagreement, but those issues were handled in the normal decorum that we are accustomed to when heads of states are addressing the media. And so it will not be helpful of us to go there with a negative expectation. We are excited at the opportunity to reset the relationship. Where President Ramaphosa will need to be firm, he will do so, ever so diplomatic, ever so elegant. Where we align and agree, we will build on that. And so we shouldn't overburden ourselves with a large degree of fear and negativity out of one incident that kind of spiraled out of control. And since then, President Trump has hosted other heads of states, and those meetings have gone well without any drama. As
a final question then, who is he taking with him?
We haven't finalized that, Bongiwe, but we will be finalizing it in a day or so. I may have been overtaken by events. You may find that it's already been finalized, but we will issue a revised advisory, if you like, because we're still finalizing other elements of the program. Certainly Minister Lamula will be there, but in terms of other members of the delegation, that has not been finalized. It's not a state visit, it's a working visit, primarily focused on the two heads of state. And so you don't require a large delegation. There won't be any memorandums of understanding that will be signed and so on. We're really focusing on resetting the relationship at a head of state level. And so the president will not be taking a large delegation, but certainly Minister Lamula in his capacity and role will be
no
there.
Other meetings around this?
We are yet to finalize other meetings. It's going to be a very short visit. You saw the dates that we issued. So it's a really quick in and out of the US, unfortunately coinciding with the budget. But it's very difficult also to align dates between the heads of states of the largest economy in the world and the largest economy in Africa.
And just before I let you go, then he is confident, now that you've mentioned the budget, is he confident that when he comes back home, we will have a successful third attempt at tabling a successful budget?
No, he is confident simply because there's a lot of groundwork that has been done and consultations that have been held with the parties in the GNU as well as other key stakeholders. And so he is confident that this time around, budget 3.0, as it has been termed, will pass through.
Let's see then if he does come back to a country with a budget, Vincent. We don't know. Let's see. That was President's spokesperson there, Vincent Magwenya.